Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed my honor, my pleasure, to introduce our keynote speaker, Americana, blues, soul, and singer-songwriter Janiva Magness. Janiva is a great artist. I'm a big fan. She's Grammy nominated. She received the B.B. King Contemporary Female Artist of the Year and Song of the Year winner. She's also a 28 times Blues Music Award nominee, a 7-time Blues Music Award winner, and only the second woman in history to ever receive the B.B. King Entertainer of the Year Award, which was presented to her personally by B.B. King along with Bonnie Raitt. Like I said, I'm a big fan of hers. I've traveled to Seattle, Baltimore, and DC to hear her play. She's really got soul, and she puts on a great show. But despite all her incredible achievements, Janiva had a humble and often tragic start in life. Born in Detroit, Michigan, she lost both of her parents to suicide as a child, and she was placed in a dozen foster homes. In fact, her final foster mother was the one who encouraged her to find her stability and her salvation in music. I know a few of you heard a little of her story and her passion for children who are still in the foster care system, like she was when you attended the foster care symposium earlier today. In addition to her extremely busy professional life as a musician, for instance, she's produced 14 studio albums. She's also a spokesperson for the KC Family Program's National Foster Care Awareness campaigns, as well as an ambassador for both the Foster Care Alumni of America and the Child Welfare League of America. Also in her spare time, she is writing a memoir called Weeds Like Us, which will be out later this year. I love Janiva. I know you will too. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome her to the stage to speak to us this evening. Please give a very warm PTA welcome to Janiva Magness.
Turn that woman off. Thank you. How's everyone doing? You all right? Good to go? I would thank you, Nathan, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would really like to send out a special thank you to the following people from the National PTA offices. Elizabeth Rorick, Deputy Director of Government Affairs and Communications. Jim Accomando, National PTA President. Nathan Monell, Executive Director for the National PTA. And my friend, Donna Taylor, Director of Meetings and Events. Heather Parker, Health and Safety Consultant. Heidi Mae Wilson, Senior Manager of Media Relations. Dwayne Robertson, Manager of Meetings and Events. I also want to send a very special thank you to all of the national PTA regions and representatives for being here today, this week, to congregate, to participate, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Reflections Arts program. So please give yourself a hand of applause. And also, I'd like to thank you for being here to propagate the future for young people in our nation. Congratulations to you for that. I would like to thank you in advance for not just what you're doing today by being here and this week by being here, but for what you're going to do moving forward. I have been blessed to carry a message of hope for people involved in and dedicated to helping at-risk young people in our nation. It's a huge honor, and it is, in fact, a daunting responsibility for me. I appreciate the following opportunities more than I can really express in words. My relationship with Foster Care Alumni of America, my relationship with the Child Welfare League of America, and my relationship with Casey Family Programs, and now, apparently, the PTA. It really means a great deal to me as a mentor and as alumni of foster care. It has been a deeply rewarding experience. To come from the other side of my early life events has been intense, to say the least. It's a lot like slipping through a wormhole. That's what I feel like. I have much to share with folks that are interested in hearing a message of hope and what it means for our most vulnerable children. So I'd like to qualify a little bit, like what I'm doing here, why I got asked to be here, and maybe where I got the suit, if you really want to know. Macy's. Please allow me to qualify in order for you to get the full scope of what it is I want to share, I'm hoping to communicate and convey with you. I will tell you some of what I have come to frame as the highlights of my history, because I am one of those unreported statistics. My first suicide attempt was age 4. I was being sexually molested in my home by age 6. By the time I turned 13, my mother died by suicide the week after I turned 13. I began drinking and using drugs immediately, of course. 5 months after my mother died, my 18-month-old nephew drowned in our pool in our backyard while I was babysitting. I ran away by the time I was 14 years old with a drug dealer. He happened to live across the street. He was 23. 6 months after that, I wound up in foster care, which began my journey in what, at the time, Youth in Care referred to as the meat grinder. I had 12 foster placements in 2 years and change. Not a high number in terms of averages. Not a high number. 3 psychiatric hospitalizations, 2 group homes for mentally retarded girls because my social worker just did not know what to do with me. Then my 7-month-old nephew died from SIDS. Then my father died by suicide. And now I'm 16, and then I get pregnant. My daughter was born when I was 17, and 4 months after her birth, I gave her up for adoption because I knew I was doomed. And I could not stomach the idea that I would do to her what had been done to me. Abandonment at the deepest level. So in short, what my normal looked like back those days was the resonance of trauma. It was the resonance of fear, violence, bullying, incest, addiction, rape, clinical depression, parental suicides, my own suicide attempts, and infant mortality. I was ill-equipped. That's putting it lightly. Post-traumatic stress disorder in spades, and teenage pregnancy. I carried my belongings in a large trash bag, which many of us did back in those days. It wasn't a big deal, it's just what we had to do because nobody had a suitcase. I went to 9 high schools. And somehow I managed to be an A and B student. Okay, except for science. Science was not my thing, okay? I did not like science, and I didn't like that science teacher. So my diagnosis during that period of time, because I was ordered by the court, of course I was on probation, and I was ordered by the court to see the court psychiatrist. He deemed me schizophrenic, maladjusted, manic depressive, which is now known as bipolar, and highly suicidal. And you know, I looked like that, and I acted like that. Confusion, depression. I was frozen in these wounds, disconnected and operating 100% out of trauma. I used alcohol and drugs in order to navigate these very volatile and very dangerous waters, both internally and externally, as often as possible for me, and pretty much by any means necessary. I made repeated bad choices in the company I kept, bad older men, and then worse older men. And lots of poor decisions. My daily life was totally uncertain, and the future, I didn't think about the future. I couldn't think about the future. I was disconnected as a basic means of survival. Let me repeat that, because it's going to be important in a few minutes. I was disconnected as a basic means of survival. It's a tool. Okay, here's what happened. A series of unexpected people and events came to me, which included exposure to some remarkable live blues and soul music. And eventually, over a long period of time, all of this led to slowly changing my actions, which allowed me to make different choices for myself. Very slowly, change occurred, both within me and around me. That was brought on by a small group of individuals that somehow carried hope for me when I carried no hope. This small group of individuals would include foster placement number 12. Her name was Carrie. She was a very unlikely character. What that means is that she was a single mother of 5 children with a deadbeat ex-husband who refused to pay child support, and I was only supposed to land on her doorstep for 72 hours. And at the end of that 72 hours, she said to me, "If you want, this can end starting now. You stay with us. We will get licensed. You stay here because we already love you and it's only been 3 days." And I thought I was hearing a language I didn't understand. But placement number 12, Carrie and her family, was the right fit for me, and I was finally ready for that fit. Social workers. The last social worker, her name was Carol Felix, God bless her. A 7th grade English teacher. Gary Strauch, if you're in the room, I'd love to say hello again. 7th grade English teacher who appropriately cared about me. That final foster placement, number 12, music itself. Lots and lots of therapists, and by the way, 12-step programs. 12-step programs, they actually do work, and more. In my case, all of those characters, that small group of people loved me when I could not love myself, and in my case, they stood up for me. They held a light for me to move forward. They also taught me about boundaries. So there I was, stumbling, bumbling forward in the stops and starts, but all the same, I was at least moving, rather than being frozen and disconnected or just simply trying to erase myself and go away by repeating the same destructive history. You know, those old habitual behaviors were, up until that point, they were the only thing that I had known. And then sobriety. Sobriety happened for me. Once sobriety took hold, recovery could begin. Understand they're not the same thing. There's sobriety, in other words, a state of abstinence, and then there is recovery. And once sobriety was in place, for me, recovery could begin. Not just recovery from alcoholism, drug addiction, but recovery eventually from the trauma from the post-traumatic stress disorder, and from depression. It is the only reason, it is the only reasonable explanation for why I'm standing up here in this white suit talking to you, why I've been asked to be here, is that state of recovery from the impossible, recovery from my history. And I had to recognize my pain. I had to learn to identify and embrace the challenges before I could actually rise to the occasion. Here's what else you need to know. There is no way that I could have done this alone. That wasn't going to happen. There is no way that this would have gone on without the music. None of it has been easy or at the pace that I would have preferred, meaning way too slow for me, because I'm in a hurry. The long haul has been very long. So all of this began with that weird 4-letter word, hope. Again, this was a dangerous proposition for anyone like me, which is why I intimately understand the importance of being given patience, compassion, repeated encouragement, and boundaries as a youth at risk. I'm telling you what a long, strange trip it has been. So I want to talk with you today about two things: resonance and hope. Let's start with hope. Hope is such a powerful word. Now, it might sound strange to many of you, but for youth that are vulnerable, for foster kids, for at-risk children, hope can become a 4-letter word that is a major risk we simply cannot afford. It is, in my opinion, one of the greatest causes of recidivism in the destructive behaviors that we often manifest as at-risk youth. Here's why. I'm a big fan of Webster's dictionary. I love me a dictionary, okay? Here's why. Webster's dictionary defines hope as a noun and a verb. The noun, to want something to happen or be true. The verb, to have an expectation of fulfillment or success. You know, as vulnerable young people, we grow up far too quickly and see too much at very young ages. We simply cannot afford to risk wanting something or expecting success. I don't have time for that. I don't have room. When your thoughts are concerned about a roof over your head, when you're going to eat again, some clothing to wear, something that's clean, where you're sleeping, your own personal safety and survival, in my experience, there's simply no room for hope and dreams. For us, survival is paramount, and that means many of us instinctively stay closer to the ground. It's just safer down there. So, a very dear friend of mine's young son said to him one time, "Hey, Dad, you know, if you lower your expectations, you're going to feel a lot better." Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, you have, we all have one major responsibility, and that is to keep hope alive. Because without hope, we simply cannot move forward. Okay, so the latest stats from 2016 show that Child Protective Services received an estimated 4.1 million allegations of abuse and neglect, involving 7.4 million children, and those are only the reported cases. It's horrible. We know that youth and families at risk are often dealing with multiple complexities in their lives. poverty, addiction, mental illness, violence, homelessness, and more. So what is the way forward for the PTA in the face of such frightening information? I believe it is imperative for us to remember that statistics are not the whole picture. There are many, many success stories, successful lives, stories of hope, stories of victory, stories of celebration. These stories need to be part of the equation in order for us to get a clearer picture of what is possible to encourage and inspire other young people. It turns out I'm one of those stories. I'm a success story. I am a living witness to the manifestation of hope and resonance. For me, I must remember this. It is both a simple, very simple, and very challenging solution. We must commit to spreading light. Now, that might sound a little bit Hallmark for you, but bear with me here, please. There are two fundamental ways of spreading light. We can either be the candle, or we can be the mirror that reflects the light in a young person to themselves. As caring adults in the community, I, you, we have a tremendous amount of power. We really can help to create a community that practices compassion, support, healing, and education. And we know education helps us understand. So that moving forward for young people is actually within reach. It is possible to be part of a chain of hope, and this resonates. Ultimately, it can help to create a culture of hope, which we deeply need. Link by link, hope actually can form a chain. It is strengthened by community, which is to say that we have strength in numbers. That chain of hope can lift any load and move that load forward, and I mean any load. This is also resonance. Now, Webster, let's talk about Webster again for a second, defines resonance as the quality of evoking response. I say this, you feel that. I do this, you do that. It's a synchronous gravitational relationship of two beings. Resonance does not exist by itself. Kindness has resonance. Love has resonance. And resonance is profound. Courage has resonance. Those actions bring with them light for at-risk youth and young people in the struggle for our lives. That light brings resonance. So, I really believe that we have what it takes to remedy what lies before us. Kindness, love, courage, and light. It's a great recipe. Let us manifest those actions. Let us amplify that. I want to share with you now what my normal looks like today. Honestly, it gets embarrassing for me because my therapist continues, and I still see one, continues to assure me that I'm going to have issues as life carries on, but having my head be too big to go through the door will not be one of them. Okay. I'm an internationally acclaimed and world-traveled recording artist. I am Grammy nominated, multi-award winning songwriter. I'm about to release my 15th album. My memoir comes out next week. So I'm an author. I'm happily married. I am a mentor. I'm a yoga nut. I'm a grandmother. I'm a crappy amateur gardener. My poor plants, I gotta tell you. And I love to refinish old furniture. And I am surrendered to the fact that I am addicted to critters. Cats, dogs, possum, squirrel, camels, I don't care, horses, whatever. It's furry, I love it. I understand, I want you to understand this, please. Music was one of my escape routes as a young girl. That became the obsession of a traumatized teenager, which then paved the way into my adulthood as a legitimate career through music and the arts. I recognize today it was pretty much the only tether that I had for a very long time, music. It turns out that the arts make a connection to us. In my case, largely music, which speaks to me like many alumni of trauma and alumni of foster care. Music and the arts speak to the place in me where I have no words. And that place, that sacred, holy place, desperately needs dialogue. That place is dying for a connection. So let's go back to the mission. As I understand it, the mission is to raise awareness and encourage empathy for youth in care, for every child, regardless of the challenges. This week's conference is a collective of concerned parents and teachers hoping to make a difference. Therefore, I would love to offer you a call to action with some key questions, just to get it started. How can we as individuals and as a diverse community actually make a difference in the life of a person who is in the experience of disconnect? What does it look like to hold hope for another person? I don't know how many people are in this room. I've always been bad at that number thing. Anybody got an idea? There's a few hundred of us in here. Let's just say 25% of us came up with one action to help this mission. 25%. That would be incredible. What if 50% of us did that? What if 100% of us came up with one single action we could bring to the table as an idea to help? What would that look like? I can tell you what that would look like. Magnificent hope and brilliant resonance. Because as we manifest the kind of actions of hope, change actually occurs. It will occur. Because these actions can create hope. Hope creates more hope because it resonates. And then it spreads. So going forward, I would like to challenge us all. I invite you. I ask you. I don't beg very much, but I'm going to beg you. Please dialogue about these questions. Brainstorm on them. Meditate on them. Think about them when you're taking the dog for a walk. Think on these questions. Propagate. Remember that we have a tremendous power as caring adults in the community. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to hold hope for at-risk young people until they can find hope for themselves. We have the actual ability to make a difference for vulnerable youth and really change their experience of disconnect. We really, really do. Here's a couple more thoughts to help feed the challenge. You see, I'm waiting for my teleprompter here. I'm so sorry. They gave me a teleprompter that's that's big enough for old people eyes. Because you know I'm wearing my bifocals that are cool because they don't have a line in the middle. Okay, here's some additional thoughts to help feed the challenge. The arts programs are important because art connects us. Make no mistake about that. Please remember the healing power of the arts and how important it truly is. It's a magnificent tool. Here's a weird one. Summer jobs. They're important, not only to help us gain a sense of independence as young people, but these summer jobs actually can help us to understand and become financially literate. Whoa. This will prove to be a pretty critical skill in adulthood as we grow. Summer jobs can truly help us to learn good work habits and social skills. My first job was at a Dairy Queen. I loved making that ice cream. We ate all the mistakes. It was really cool. Learning healthy self-care for both physical and mental health habits, developing health and wellness lifestyles. Those that include making positive choices in our relationships. What does that mean? That sounds like so smooth and so polished. Let me break it down for you. How do I choose my friends wisely? What do I do? How do I figure that out? Oh yeah, and young people need to have appropriate mentors as adults. We desperately need that. So how do we ensure that this can actually happen? I'm asking you to consider these thoughts, these questions. In closing, I want to share something else. This is gold for me because it took forever to see it. I have learned that the path to victory lies directly between fate and destiny. Fate is what life hands us. In my case, here you go. Here's a highly dysfunctional family. They're good people. They're just incredibly mentally ill. And then everything I already told you about. Destiny is what we do with what we have been given. And myself, like Kevin Brown and several other alumni, Lupe Tovar and a lot of alumni, the success stories, we all got PhDs in making lemonade, okay? I have learned that triumph is in part determined by our attitude and then opportunity. Attitude and opportunity. If we can help at-risk youth to find the courage and the hope to change, everything is possible for them. And everything is possible for us because their joy, because their path to victory resonates. Hope resonates. Healing resonates. Love resonates. And all three of those things take courage. I believe this to my soul. I have seen it with my eyes. I have seen it with my heart. And I am a living witness to this fact. And I remember that hope forms a chain. I hope you can remember that hope forms a chain. You will not be alone on this mission. No. We have great strength in numbers. I promise. We do this together. That's what we do. Thank you. Thank you. Am I staying, Nathan? Okay. Oops. All right. I sing songs for a living. I travel around the world. I do what I love to do. People frequently applaud, and then someone gives me money. It's pretty wild. You know. For that kid I told you about, it's pretty wild. So Nathan asked me, Nathan Monell, my dear friend and president, if I would sing a song for you. So I said, I will do that because you're asking me. And I forgot to bring my pitchfork thingy up here. So I'm just going to have to fly by the seat of my pants on the key. I'll do a song that I love. It's very dear to my heart. Anybody who would be familiar with Fontella Bass, she had a big hit for Chess Records back in the day. That hit song was Rescue Me. And if you were smart enough and hip enough to have that 45 and you flipped that 45 over, you'd have found this next song. And that song is titled The Soul of a Man. The soul of a man touches something inside of me. Something too deep for anyone else to see. And the whole world wants to know why I love him so. But I'm afraid they just wouldn't understand. My love for the man is just something I can't explain. Yet every tear I shed, I know is wasted in vain. But there's something I must reveal that I so deeply feel. Oh, it must be, it's got to be the soul of a man. Now I cry and I cry till I just can't cry no more. 'Cause I know the man don't love me, but he won't let me go. He controls my mind, my heart, and my soul. and he's got the power to make me stay when I really want to go. The soul of a man turned my mind around. It just takes my helpless heart, turns it upside down. But there's something I must reveal that I so deeply feel. Oh, it must be, it's got to be the soul of a man. Thank you.